If you are a new dad and you suddenly feel like everything has a tendency to just piss you off, or that you can't get out of bed like the young buck that you think you are, and you're absolutely convinced that your wife is going to murder you when you sleep, well, congratulations. Your testosterone is completely tanked and you might be dealing with paternal postpartum depression. Today I'm going to break down the reality of fatherhood. I'm talking about why men who usually are consistent start to slack, the facts behind why our brains start to short circuit, and the exact systems that you need to build to get your consistency back. And moms, well, you might want to stick around for this too. It explains a lot. So my wife and I just brought home twins, which brings our grand total of 4 kids under one roof. The older 2 were already keeping us on our toes, so it's safe to say that this is not our first rodeo. I like to think that I've got my daily routines and consistency pretty locked in. But here is the reality check that most men aren't even aware of. When a guy becomes a dad, his biology actively tries to humble him. Seriously. Your testosterone takes a massive nosedive, dropping up to 34%. You're not just feeling a little tired, you are biologically operating on a level of clinical low T. And if you throw severe sleep deprivation on top of that, whether that's because the babies won't stop crying or the fact that your readiness to protect the infant and your family from any kind of threat is on ultra high alert. I know exactly what this looks like. Maybe also add the fact that you might still have to go and pull those long shifts at work. That's where I'm at. I went right back to pulling those late night shifts behind the bar and not being on the level that I usually perform at. I'm messing up drink orders, I'm hesitating, and I'm not able to do the math of the ingredient measurements for the cocktails, etc. It even got to the point where my coworkers were stepping in to take over. And while I was beating myself up over it, they would be good enough to me and remind me of all the shit that I'm actually dealing with lately, while stating that they don't have those types of responsibilities. To cut myself some slack, they've got me covered. Good men I work with. Absolutely love that crew. Maybe you also will look across the kitchen at your exhausted wife and she's giving you this look, this glare that makes you think she's plotting your demise. You know, that look they say that if looks could kill, you might be thinking, why does she hate me so much? And while that may be a little true, she would probably just be satisfied with a little proactiveness when it comes to the newborn baby, or in my case, babies. To make this even more difficult for my wife and I, our older kids caught the flu this past week. So now we are trying to tag team newborn twins while taking care of 2 miserably sick kids who are constantly needing mommy and daddy's love and affection, while trying to quarantine them and not let them get close to the newborns, and doing our absolute best to make sure that we're not the middlemen and passing the germs back and forth. It has been quite an exhausting 2 weeks, to say the least. So look, because the medical field rightfully focuses so heavily on mom and baby, we dads can end up feeling like the ultimate third wheel. We feel invisible. And how do guys react when they feel useless? We don't get weepy. We get irritable. We get cynical. And we start to slack. We retreat into our phones, or in my case, video games, just to avoid the feeling that we are failing inside of our own house. But here's the undeniable truth. You cannot wait around for the feeling to be a great dad, to have that feeling of being a great dad to magically return. Motivation is not something you should rely on in this situation. You have to force the issue with systems. That's how you get your consistency back. First thing you need to do is lock down your sleep. The experts suggest a 4-4 split. 4 hours on duty and 4 hours of uninterrupted, isolated sleep in another room. Doing this will stop your brain from redlining. Next, you've got to get your hormones back in check. Get some sunlight. Go get back in the gym. Lift heavy. You know, I'm talking 45 minutes of deadlifts and squats to shock your system back naturally online. It's a psychological concept called behavioral activation. You execute the action first, and the feelings you are looking for will follow shortly after. Look, hitting a wall and falling into a funk as a new dad is completely biologically normal. So stop beating yourself up so much about it. I have been there and I know what that feels like. And I have complete faith that you are going to do great. But biology is not a permanent excuse to beat yourself up and not uphold your duties. Build your systems and lead your house. All right, well, I'm heading into work to fuck up the drinks again and try to make a little bit of money. Scott signing out.